Hakadosh, Boker Or, Masechet Nedarim Daf 39A1. We're just going to start on 38b, the Mishnah, which is the second last line. Hamudana na'ah mechavero v'nichnas levakero. Imagine right now you are mudana na'ah from your friend, and all of a sudden what happens is he becomes sick, so you go in to visit him. Omed, you can only stand. Yeah, you're only allowed to stand, right? Avalo yoshev, but you're not allowed to actually sit down in the house of the chole. The Gemara is going to explain, obviously. Umrapeo refuat nefesh, avalo refuat mamon. You're allowed to cure him. Refuat nefesh. Obviously, we're going to have to see this as well, right? But not refuat mamon, but not refuat of money. So, okay, we have to understand what does that mean. Refuat nefesh of not refuat of money. Says the Gemara, Lametet Amud Aleph 39A1. Okay, so this is now where we're today's daf, which is basically for tomorrow. The Gemara says, so we just finished the Mishnah, and the Gemara now says, what are we dealing with exactly? If you're going to tell me that we're talking about the properties of the Mbaker, which means the visitor, is going to be prohibited onto the Chole, so why can't he sit down? Meaning like this, I came and I made a neder not to then benefit from Mr. John Doe. Yeah, and now Mr. John Doe, yeah, he comes and he becomes sick. So I go in to visit him. So now, if my properties are prohibited for him, so now I came to visit him, why can't I sit down in his house? Right? If my properties are prohibited on him, that's nichtzea mevaker asurin ala chole. So therefore you can also even sit down. If it's the opposite, that it's the properties of the chole, which are going to be, right, asurin on the vaker, so then afilu omen nami. So then even to stand up, then no. Because at the end of the day, why is it that I'm not allowed to sit down in his house, but I'm allowed to stand in his house? If I'm not allowed to benefit from his house, so then even standing in his house should be a problem. What? There's no benefit in the fact that I'm standing. Even for a mitzvah, it should be a sur. There's no difference. At the end of the day, it's a sur. It's a sur. I'm not allowed to even go into his house. So answers the Gemara. Amar Shemuel says, answers Shemuel. Leolam b'niksei mvaker asurin lachole. Really, be'emet, I was the one that prohibited myself to the chole. Ubemkom shenotlim schar ala yeshiva, right? But it's a place where you get reward for sitting down, which means, right, that they used to have a minhag that if somebody comes to sit down, right, if somebody comes to sit down and to benefit, meaning that he's going to sit down and do bikur cholim, but he's sitting down, something fixed, there was a minhag that what? There was a minhag that you would get paid for it. And if you just come to go in and out, right, in and out, you wouldn't get paid. But there was a minhag, od pam shenotlim schar ala yeshiva. They used to take reward for doing it. But not taking reward for standing up. So therefore, when you're coming and you're visiting him, so if you're going to do it and you're going to sit down, so now he's benefiting from you because technically speaking, right, he should have paid you, right, or somebody. But now, so what happens is, right, what happens is that obviously here he's not allowed to actually sit down. So says the Gemara, what's not nice? So my psaka, so what is exactly the davar katsuv that it's mutar to stand there then? Right? Because you just told me that to sit, prohibited, because then he's benefiting from you. But to stand is mutar. How long is it? Yeah? So he says, HaKamash Balan comes to teach you, that even if it is that they're going to take reward for the sitting, ala yeshiva ba'ile mishkal, only for sitting do they take reward. Ala midah lo ba'mishkal, but not understanding, which means you could be there for 10 hours standing, but if you didn't sit, you don't get a penny. Doesn't count. Right? But if you sit, that's when it starts. Even though you're, why? Because that's just the way that it is. Or if you want, you can answer, like Rabbi Shimon ben Eliakim. That really be'emet, right? He wanted to say in another place that Chachamim prohibited you to go inside the sadeh of the madin, even if it's going to be mutar mitzadin, but the gezerah, maybe you're going to be there. Right? And therefore, you're going to be benefiting from it. So to hear, maybe what's going to happen is that maybe you're going to be there for such a long time. And because of that, you're going to take sachar. And if you're going to be there, right, it's going to come out that you're actually benefiting. Okay, fine. A third explanation of our Mishnah. Ula amar lolam really be'emet b'niksei hachole asurin al amvaker. Really be'emet is the opposite. The chole's property of John Doe is permitted onto me, onto the mavaker, onto the one that's visiting. But the example is that which we just said that it's going to be permitted to come and to visit him, right? And we said standing up is because mistama, right? He didn't know how to kavanah in such a case that it's for his best, right? So therefore, since he's actually benefiting so much from bikur cholim, because he needs that people should come visit him, so he never had the kavanah when he was making the neder. You understood? One more time, right? What happened is that John Doe was the one that made the neder against me. Yeah, I come to visit John Doe, and all of a sudden it's permitted, right? So beforehand we said it's only permitted to stand, not to sit, right? Now one second, why? So then the first beginning was, no, I permit myself to him. So I'm allowed to go in and to stand, but not to sit, because if I sit, then I get paid for it. So and if I'm doing it for free, he's benefiting. So obviously not. So that's not the case. The third answer, we come right now, we just answered, was the opposite. That what? John Doe prohibited onto me benefiting. I come
you to benefit from him.
Yeah, that I'm not allowed to benefit from him. Okay, so he comes and he made the neder onto me. I'm not allowed to benefit from him. I come to visit him. Mutar. Why is it mutar? I'm benefiting. I'm standing in his house. Yeah, I'm standing in his house. There's probably AC. I'm enjoying, right? What's going on? Says the Gemara, you know why? Because he doesn't have the kavanah to prohibit onto me, right? Because that's a benefit for him that is so great, right? That he never had that in mind. The bikur cholim is so strong that he needs it. He never had that in mind. And therefore, that's for sure he was going to, he never had that in mind to prohibit such a thing. Okay?
So we have
there's three answers. If you remember, that the Gemara says it's Davka Ben Gilo takes away 1/60th of the sickness. Ben Gilo means that they were born in the same mazal. However, though the Rambam, right, he doesn't bring down Ben Gilo. It's only the Ra'avad that argues on the Rambam. Ben Gilo, the person born in the same constellation, the same mazal, if he comes to visit you, so he takes away 1/60th. So the Rambam doesn't bring down Ben Gilo, but the Ra'avad does, because in the Gemara, it does say that it's Dafka Ben Gilo. That's why when Yaakov Avinu was visited by his son Yosef was in the same constellation, the same mazal as Yaakov. So therefore, he was able to strengthen himself on the bed because he felt revived. You understand? He was all of a sudden strengthened. Why? Because he took away part of the sickness. However, though, the Rambam, is based on the Midrash Rabbah. And the Midrash Rabbah says, Mefurash, that actually when anyone comes to visit you, they take away 1/60th of the sickness. And it's brought down in the explanations on the Midrash Rabbah. The reason why is because it's like that, for example, when somebody comes, they take 1/60th. Now, they don't become sick because since it's such a small portion, so their antibodies are able to fight off, right, the sickness, right? But the sickness spreads, right? It does spread. So therefore, the more people that come, the more people that take it away from him, and they give him it's only just moral support and everything else. It actually, it's something there. So it's actually something beautiful.
A wonderful story of Yosef when he was sick, President Chirac came to visit him, and Chirac said, I know that when somebody visits a sick person, they take out 1/60 of the thing, but I'm representing 60 million of French people, so I take
of everybody. 100%. Okay. What? No. So then that's what he says. Even though he's getting a benefit, but for sure he never made such a neder because it's so beneficial for him. He never made a neder for that. Meaning when the guy comes and he says, I make a neder, I don't want to benefit from you, he didn't mean about the bikur cholim, because for sure he wants you to do bikur cholim, even though he doesn't want to benefit from you, because it's such a beneficial thing. He never had that in his mind. But now the Gemara asks, if so filu yoshev nami. So therefore, even if you're sitting there. Again, one more time. Beforehand, we were talking about you're getting rewards, you're getting paid. We got rid of that because we flipped the coin. That now it was the guy that's sick that made the neder against me. Okay? So now 1 second. If the guy that's sick made a neder against me, and now he wants me to visit so that way I could take away his sickness, so why am I only allowed to come in and stand, even to sit down? It's also beneficial for him. So why was that? No. You're allowed to go in to stand, but not to sit. That's what the Mishnah said. You're allowed to go and stand, not to sit. Why?
The minimum.
Right? Answers the Gemara, exactly. At the end of the day, you could stand and do the same thing. Meaning, the second that you sit, you're actually really benefiting. So that he does. Why? Because you could have done the exact same thing, but just standing. So I don't want you to. Meaning, sometimes they come and they say, "Okay, fine. You know what? Now I let you." I gave you the finger. That don't take my hand. I said, if I'm already letting you do something, 1 second. Try. I said, I'm already letting you. Say thank you. But once you want to grab the entire hand, no, doesn't work.
So you cannot stay long.
So you cannot exactly. No. So that means you come, you stand, but then out. That's the way it is.
You don't stay long time.
Yeah. Meitvei. So we're going to ask the following question. Chalahu nichnas levakero. Chala beno shoalo bashuk. Now the Gemara is going to ask 1 second. If the guy himself became sick, you're allowed to come and do bikur cholim. But his son that becomes sick, you only ask about him, but you're not allowed to go inside to visit him. So says the Gemara 1 second. Bishlema ula, I understand according to Shitat Ula that he says that the Mishnah is talking about that the properties of the chole, of the sick person, is prohibited on the one that's doing bikur cholim, on the visitor, right? So therefore he didn't prohibit such a thing that obviously his entire life is based upon it. Meaning you're going to ask the sick guy right now, 1 second, right? You're sick. Do you want him to visit you? Maybe if he visits you, he's going to take away your sickness. You're going to say, obviously, yes. But now it's your son. It's not the same thing. So Shapir makes sense. Why? Because the machloket is between the Madir Shechala, Ben Madir Shechala. So he comes and he says, so it's mistaber that he only did it for himself, but not for his son. But according to Shemuel, that it's on the one that's visiting. He was the one that made the neder, and he prohibits himself onto the one that's getting visited. What's the difference? Meaning the one that's sick, he could decide and he could say, listen, you know what, when I made the neder against this guy, I didn't want anything to do with him. So I made a neder, I don't want nothing. But all of a sudden you ask him, listen, do you want him to visit you? He's going to tell you yes. Now to do with his son, it's not the same. But over here in this case, where I'm the one that's making the neder, I'm the visitor, and I'm going to visit the guy. So now what's the difference now whether I'm going to visit him or his son? It's the exact same halacha. Why is it that we made a differentiation between him and the son? So Amar Lecha, so he's going to come and he's going to answer you. Matnitin benichsei amvaker asurina lachole. Right? Our Mishnah is talking about that the properties of the mvaker, which is me, the visitor, is prohibited on the chole. But the Braita is the exact opposite. Nichsei achole asurin mvaker. That it's the chole on the vaker. So it all depends who's the one that made the neder. If it's the one, again, if it's a visitor, there's no difference, right? What's the difference between the father and the son, right? But if it's there's no difference between the father and the son. But if it's going to be the guy, so there's a difference. So therefore, our Mishnah, right, was talking about what? That basically it was me that made the neder. Since it was me that made the neder, right? He never had such a thing in mind that it's going to prohibit me from coming and visiting him. However, though, here's the exact opposite. Once it's the exact opposite, right? What does it mean, the exact opposite? That now, in this case, when he makes a differentiation between the ben and the son, it's talking about that he was the one that made the neder. So since he was the one that made the neder against me, so therefore there's going to be a difference between, right, the father and the son. But for the father, which is he himself, he never had that in mind. For the son, he did actually come and he had that in mind. So says the Gemara, my psaka. Right, 1 second. So what is the psak exactly then? Right? So Amar Rava says Rava, Shmuel, right, Lameteta Mubet, 39b. Shmuel matnitin kashite. Shmuel, he had the question from the Mishnah. My idea the Tani Omer aval lo yoshev. Why is it that you can only stand and not sit? Shma mina. So we obviously learn from here that it's the properties of the baker, which is going to be prohibited on the chole. Okay? And therefore, the madid is the one, that means the one that made the neder is the one that's visiting, right? Just like we explained. So if he doesn't hold like Ula that there's a difference between standing and sitting. According to Ula, only the standing is the chiyuto of the chole is permitted, but when you sit down, it's not chiyuto shel chole, and it's permitted because you have to do the minimum basically. So therefore, he comes and he says that's the explanation of the Mishnah. So if you could only stand and not sit. But according to Shemuel, he holds that even if you sit down, it's going to be the same thing. So therefore, he comes and he says, and if so, we cannot say that the Mishnah is talking about such a case. So the Mishnah is prohibiting to sit. So obviously, he's going to say that it's the exact opposite case, that you're getting money for it. And therefore, you're not allowed to get money, and that's why it's going to be prohibited. Now we're going to speak about the importance of Bikur Cholim Mina Torah. So the Gemara is, right, what exactly, Remez Lebikur, that's a Resh Lakish. Remez Lebikur Cholim Mina Torah Minayin. How do we know that there's a Remez? Right, from Bikur Cholim from the Torah. Shneimar says in Pasuk in Bamidbar, Im Kemot Kol Ha'adam Imutun Ele, Ufkudat Kol Ha'adam Yipaked Alehem, Lo Hashem, Lo Adonai Shelachani. Right, what parasha is this? Where's the Yod?
יש לנו ראייה מבראשית והביקור הראשון שהשם ביקר את אברהם.
100%. It's a remez, 100%. But here, what does it say here, the Gemara? What is it talking about? Parashat Korach. In Parashat Korach, Moshe Rabbeinu comes and he says, if these guys are going to die a natural death, so then God did not send me. Hashem did not send me. So says the Gemara, my mashma, where's Bikur Cholim over there?
What's a natural death? It's normal to get sick before you die.
Amar Rava comes and he says, in kemot kol ha'adam yimutun ele, shehen cholim mutalim barisatan uvnei adam vakrin otam. Which means, if you're going to tell me that Korach are going to have a natural death and they get sick and then people come to visit them and then they die, so then God did not send me. Why? Because that means he's coming and saying that there's a concept of Pekida and Zechira. Remember, we just learned this. Actually, right? We just learned this. Hashem Pakad. Pakad is to what? To remember. So when it says, we learned this also in Tani, right? Tani,
Remember the birth.
The remembering, right? Pakad. So therefore, he comes and he says, right? Pakad. So he says, Cholim mutalim bari satan, and then people come and they visit them. So from the fact that he said that the people remember them. So he says, Ma briot omrim. Right? So what are people going to say? Lo Hashem shelachani. What does that mean? Then they're going to say that God did not send me. Because basically they're going to say like this. Imagine right now, right? Imagine the coincidence, even though it's a big coincidence. Imagine what would have happened if Korach rebels against Moshe Rabbeinu, and then all of a sudden, all his people, they get sick. People come in to visit him, right? And then they all die. Now, technically speaking, you're going to say, listen, what a coincidence. You guys just rebelled against Moshe Rabbeinu, and all of a sudden you all get sick and you all die. But still, Moshe Rabbeinu comes and he says, if they're going to die such a death, people are going to say that God did not send me. Because at the end of the day, right, they got sick, and then they died after. People come to visit them. So what? People are going to say, listen, they got COVID. I don't know. But they just went against Moshe Rabbeinu. Wait, it's not coincidence. But people, that's the way it is. People, they just come. People come and they say, right, that what? That it's something different. You understand?
Natural.
So that's something natural. So therefore, people are going to invent, right, certain things. Here, the fact that the Adamah opened up a tiyah, right, and it swallowed them alive, nobody could say that that's a coincidence. Nobody could say that that's a natural death. Nobody could say anything because of Ribono Shel Olam, such a thing, it had to be. So Darash Rava comes and he expounds, Im Beriya Yivra Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu wants Hashem to create something new. He wants a creation, Im Beriya, right? A creation that Hashem will create. What does it mean? He says, Im Beriya, what does that mean? Im Beriya, it says it's Geinam, so Mutav. Right? If you're going to tell me that the Beriya is that it should be the hell, that hell opened up its mouth and swallowed them alive, so then it's going to be, okay, fine. And if not, Yivra Hashem, so then he should actually create it. Meaning, for the fact that he says, if it's going to be a place like Geinam, so then you know what? Let Geinam come and take them. But if not, so create a hell. So that way they could swallow them alive. That's what Moshe Rabbeinu comes and he asks from a Kadosh Baruch Hu to create something. He says, if it's already there, Hashem, you don't have to create something. You already have something ready.
Moses didn't know the mouth of the swallowed up Korach was done before creation. It was already sitting waiting.
Obviously not. He's asking for it.
Okay.
You understand? He's asking for it.
All right.
We know it afterwards, right? Because we have it afterwards, right? Bilam did not know that his donkey was going to open up his mouth, right? Now that we have the Mishnah and Pirkei Avot, now we know, right? But he didn't know it, even though he was a bigger Navi even than Moshe. You understand?
It's very far from the Micropolitan.
Where?
This, I understand the creation and everything, but to say if they get sick and people go and visit them, they will think, even if they don't go to visit them, they can think.
No, but the fact that people come to visit them, that means they got sick, and you see people go visiting them, so it's a hint that there's a concept that people have to go to visit sick people. Okay? So he says, any is it so? So this is, I think, maybe what Richard was trying to answer. He says, what are you talking about? There are 7 things that were created before the world was created. Torah, Teshuvah, Gan Eden, Geinam, Kisei HaKavod, Bet HaMikdash, Shemo Shel Mashiach. You have here the name of Mashiach. All these things were created even before. So what? Moshe Rabbeinu had a doubt whether there was hell or not hell? Meaning, what's Moshe Rabbeinu asking for? He's coming and saying, you know what, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you didn't create such a place, so then create it. But if you did, then it's okay. He doesn't know that a Geinam exists. So says, but now before going to answering the question, it says, Torah dichtiv Hashem karani reshit darko. How do we know that Torah? Huh? So he says, how do we know that Torah was created before the world? He says, Hashem karani reshit darko. So therefore it says, Hashem kana, he was the kilu barauta, even before, reshit darko, at the beginning of his path. Shuvah, as it's written, B'terem arim yuladu, v'techol el eretz v'tevel, tashev enosh deka. What does that mean? So it says even beterem arim yuladu, even before. Remember, beterem is right before. That's how right terem yishkavu. Terem, the word terem is always beforehand. So it says beterem arim yuladu v'techol el tashev enosh deka. So that's teshuvah. Gan Eden, but it's written. Vayita Hashem Elokim Gan Eden b'Kedem. Geinam, but it's written in a pasuk in Yeshaya. Ki aruch me'etmol tifteh. Tifteh is Geinam, and me'etmul, it should be, is like etmol, right? He comes and he says, it's really be'emet, is that even from yesterday, that means it was already here, Geinam. Kisei HaKavod, as it says, Nachon kisecha me'az, Nachon kisecha me'az, me'ata, right? And so he says, Nachon kisecha me'az, from then, that you already had your throne. Bet HaMikdash was written, Kisei Chavod marom rishon. What does that mean? Makom Mikdashenu, which means that it was already there from the beginning. Okay, and the name of Mashiach, as it says, Yihi Shemo Leolam, right? Lifnei Shemesh Yinon Shemo. What does that mean? That his name was there forever, which means that the name of Mashiach always existed. So you see from here, though, that 1 second, if Geinam already existed even before the world, Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know this? Answers the Gemara Lahachi Kamar. This is what it means to say. I ivre lepuma mutav, v'im lo ivra Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu knew there existed Geinam, but he didn't know that it had a mouth. He wasn't sure that it had a mouth to open itself up like an entrance to come and to swallow people alive. So he says, if right now Hashem already he created one, so then good. And if not, create one, so that way it swallows them alive. He knew that if people come and they do terrible things in their lives, and then they pass away, their neshama goes to Geinam, he already knew that. That everyone knows. That Moshe Rabbeinu knew. He didn't know about the mouth. And he wanted to find out about the mouth. So says the Gemara, what are you talking about? What does that mean? Right? There's not going to be something new. Once something was created, there's doing Sheshet Bereshit, after Sheshet Bereshit, after the 6 days of creation, Gamanu. That's it. So says the Gemara, Hachi Kamar. This is what it means to say. Ihacha lo mikrav puma ulhacha likarav. So he comes and he says, it's not that you're making a new mouth. The mouth was always there. But he wanted to know where's the entrance. So he comes and he tells HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if the entrance nearby, so just, make sure that you just open it up so that way they get swallowed alive. And if the entrance not nearby, so then bring it over a kilo. You understand? Like make a new entrance, but it's not something new. It's like, yeah, exactly. It's not like a new entity. It's just bring it closer. So Darash Rava ve'amlila. So Rava comes and expounds. And some people say, Rabbi Yitzchak, what does it mean in the pasuk? Shemesh yareach hamad zevula. So he comes and he says, what does this mean exactly? Because the Targum there in Rashi, the Radak, and everything we're talking about, that he commanded the sun, right, and the moon to stop, right? In order, that means this is talking about over there with Yoshua, that he commanded the sun and the moon to stop in order that they could come and they could kill out their moris. So he comes and he says like this, Shemesh yareach hamud zevula, leor chitzecha yalechu loga berachanitecha. So he comes and he says like this. He says like this. Shemesh v'yareach bizvul my bayan. What exactly is the shemesh and yareach in a place called Zevul, where that's not their place? So it's in the rakia, right? Zvul is above the rakia. Okay, so basically, what we're trying to find out is 1 second in the firmament, which is the lower levels of the heavens, right? You have the shemesh v'yareach. Why are you talking all of a sudden about the shemesh v'yareach and Zvul in a much higher place? What's going on? So melamed shalu shemesh v'yareach merakia lezvul. The shemesh v'yareach, they went up from the rakia, from the firmament, further up. Ve'amlu lefanav, and they said, Akadosh Baruch Hu, Ribono shel Olam, im ata oseh din leben Amram, right? So if you're going to come and you're going to be tovea, if you're going to come and you give the punishment to Korach and punish them, anu mirim. We're going to come and we're going to illuminate. V'im lav, and if not, en anu mirim. We're not going to come, right? And we're going to illuminate anymore. So from then, HaKadosh Baruch Hu came and he started shooting them in the arrows, right? Which means he went and he said, right, a ta'ana, that they didn't have an answer. So therefore he was kilu shooting at them arrows. What was the ta'ana? Amar lahem, if we continue to say it, Amar lahem, he comes and he says, Bechol yom vayom mishtachavim lachem, v'atem meirim, bichvodi lo mechitem, you have to remember that in the olden days, they served everything. And one of the purposes of idols was also the sun and the moon. So people used to worship the sun, or people worship the moon. So comes HaKadosh Baruch Hu and he says, 1 second. People are serving you guys as idols, and you guys never came to me and told me that if I'm not going to punish these idol worshippers, that you're not going to illuminate. So it means for my honor, for my respect, you kept your mouths quiet, and all of a sudden for the respect of Moshe Rabbeinu, of a human being, now you're coming and you're saying that? So therefore, exactly, now it's a beautiful point. So because of that, he started shooting at them arrows because they had no rebuttal. They had nothing what to answer. How are they going to answer such a thing? So because of that, every day, they come and they start shooting at them arrows in order to illuminate. Because it says in the pasuk, "Leor chitzecha yalechu." So just to understand, right, the greatness of what it is, because they weren't mocheh al kevod shamayim. They weren't mocheh. They didn't come and rebuke for the kevod shamayim. They only rebuked on kevod of Moshe Rabbeinu, but not on shamayim. So look what happened.
I might want to add here the note of the Rashba.
Yeah, we learned in the Braita. Bikur cholim en lahem shiur. There's no shiur for bikur cholim. You heard that, Richard? We don't give shiur on bikur cholim.
Okay, that's unusual. That's against the general rule.
No, it's not the explanation. En lahem shiur means that there's no measure. There's no measure for bikur cholim. Meaning that you have to do it 1,000,000 times. There's no measure for it.
I understood that. What was the Hava mean of it?
No, I told you that we don't give shiur on bikur cholim. Shiur Torah.
No, I know there's no measure. I was with you from the beginning.
Fine, very good. So my enlaim shiur, what does it mean enlaim shiur? Savra Yosef the Memar, Yosef thought to say, en shiur lematan schara. There's no shiur to the reward of bikur cholim. Elmaleh Abai says, v'chol mitzvot, right? Miyeh shiur, what? And all the other mitzvot, there is a shiur? Meaning what? If you're talking about reward, what? There is a reward. It's all the same. That's what we learned in the Mishnah Navot. You have to be very careful in a very easy mitzvah, like a very harsh mitzvah. Because you don't know the reward for mitzvot. So you see from here that we're not talking about the schar of the mitzvot, because we don't know.
You know why?
Right?
You know how
we don't know.
Because long life is guaranteed.
100%.
As well as
exactly. Yes. Shiluach haken.
Yeah, one is
Ella Amar Abaye, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Ella Amar Abaye, but rather Abaye says, Afilu gadol etzel katan, ve'Rava Amar, Afilu 100 פעמים. Okay. Abaye comes and he says, Afilu gadol etzel katan, ורב אמר אפילו 100 פעמים ביום. One more time, what does that mean? That means when we say אין להם שיעור, we're not talking about the reward. We're talking about that there's no shiur means that even if you have a gadol that has to come to a katan, you have to do it. Meaning you have somebody that's much greater, and he's coming to visit somebody that's much smaller than him. Doesn't matter whether it's smaller in age, smaller in wisdom, but you have to do it. That's the explanation. En laim shiur. Rava comes and he says, en laim shiur means even if it's going to be 100 times a day. At the end of the day, en laim shiur, there's no shiur. Right? That's actually one of the answers that they say to do with why don't you make a beracha on kibud avayim? Right? You're coming to respect your parents. Right? Why don't you make a beracha? Say, Baruch atah Hashem al kibud avayim.
No shear.
No, but why can't you make a beracha? So there's no shiur. What does it mean there's no shiur? You'll never be Yotzei B'chuvah. Meaning, it's like the Torah. How do you come and you start making a beracha? Beracha, you didn't fulfill the mitzvah yet. You only started. Because it's always only a start. You understand? 100%. You could be mechaven by beracha. Beracha. One more time. There's a big difference between a beracha and between being mechaven. You could have kavanah on everything. I'm being mechaven right now that I'm learning Torah. And I'm being mechaven that I'm going to be respecting my elders. I'm going to be mechaven for a million things. We're not talking about that. We're talking about beracha. So beracha is something else. So I have a lot of kavanot, shara kavanot, but it doesn't always help. Amar Rabbi Acha bar Chanina, says Rabbi Acha bar Chanina, kol hamvaker choleh noteh lecha mishishim betzaro. So this is what we started off with, right? This is where we started, right? That what we said, if you're going to come, you're going to visit. Sorry, right? You're a sick person. You're going to come and you're going to take 1/60th of his suffering. Amri lei. So then they came and they said, 1 second, you can. Lialun shitin vilukme. If you're going to take away 1/60th, so why don't we do a trick? You know what the trick is? Let's get 60 people. Let's get them to visit, and then you took away his sickness. That's all that you need. If every single person takes 160 plus 160 plus 160, and then you don't need Rofim, you don't need anything. Yeah? So Elmaleh Kisuraita de Rabbi says no. You know why? It's because it's only like a maaser from the maaser. Meaning, the first person takes 1/60th. The second one takes 1/60th from what's left over. The third one takes 1/60th from the what's left over. And you continue going like that.
No, but still, at the end, he will be left with the time.
No, I apologize.
Oh, so you bring
Do the account. If you say it's 1/60th from the 60, so then you bring 60 people, you completely take it away. If you do 1/60th from 60, the second person you're taking 1/60th from 59. Second person 160 from what's left over from the 58 and 3/4 or whatever it is, and you continue going. You do the calculations. You need a math thing, but it's not going to be. It could be even 50. It could be even 50, or it could be 40, or whatever it is. You understand? That's what it could be. 1 minute. 1 minute. Says the Gemara, ubeben gilo. Ubeben gilo. What is ben gilo? Davka ben gilo. So here in the footnote it says Pirush ben gilo. The Ran and the Rosh says nolad b'mazalo shel hacholeh. You have to be born in the same mazal.
I prefer shita mechubeshes.
Right? 1 second, Richard. Yeah, what does that mean? So it means that according to Mamash, the same mazal. Right? You have to remember, right? How do you understand the same mazal? What does it mean, the same mazal? Right? So, for example, right, when it says the same mazal, every single person is born in a certain mazal. So the same constellations. Right, exactly. So let's say it's mazal madim. So it could be, Richard, that me and you maybe are the same mazal. You don't even know. Right? Depends what hour of the day you were born. Right? If you remember the Gemara on Shabbat, if you take there the chart, it tells you which hour and every single day, which hour of the day and which day is which mazal. So because of that, what happens is it all depends which one you're born. So as long as you're born in the same mazal, that means you could be born on a Tuesday afternoon at 5 o'clock, and then you could be born on a Shabbat morning at 8 o'clock, and you could be on the same mazal. It all depends, huh? See? So what happens? So he comes and he says, right? It says, so therefore what happens is that this is the mazal that a person is born with. Okay? Right? Shel shat leidato. right? When a person is born,
Wow.
right? Shilshata leida, when a person is born, okay? That is what we're talking about. However, the Mefaresh comes and he says, it's the same age. So you have an older person for an older person, a younger person for a younger person, right? That's the other explanation. And then you have other explanations as well.
The other
This
one
is the one.
the other one, like I said, it's very nice.
I put it right now, though. Now it makes sense also why you're not going to have taking away so much of the sickness, because if we were talking about taking away of the sickness, like we're talking about bikur cholim, the entire concept of refuah, right? Of refuah shelema. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
We are spending more
How many
effort
people
to
need to
take
get
care.
100?
What can we do?
Yes,
How much is it?
60 people, 37%.
From 60 people, if each one is taking 1/60th and the second person is 1/59th, how much is
It's
it?
not 159. It's not 159.
No, it's
You
1/60th
start
from
at
59.
100% of the machala. First guy takes 1/60th.
Okay,
Okay, you're left with 98.3. You're left with 98.33.
okay,
Okay, the second one takes a 60th of the 98.33.
exactly.
You're left with 96.7, and so on and so forth. You end up at 36.36, 36.5% at 60 people.
How much?
36.5%.
36.5% after
60 people.
60 people. Okay, very nice.
Yes.
That's if you do the calculation. Now, the shlish.
תביא 180.
No, so says the Gemara, beben gilo. Beben gilo. What is ben gilo? Right? How much? 100 people, it's 18%. And continue going.
אתה יודע, אבל הרמב"ם אומרים,
מישהו הולך לבקר
הרמב"ם אומר,
מישהו הולך לבקר חולה סרטן,
Exactly, ben gilo.
150 people,
לא, הרמב"ם אומר
8%.
So you see, even 150 people,
3.5%.
you see, even after 200 people, you still have 3%. You told me 300. 200, so you said 150 or 150. Fine. Basically 1 second. Yeah. So basically, what we're doing is, right, is we come and we saying, right, at the end of the day,
No.
right, there doesn't exist that. That's what we're saying. It doesn't exist, but you keep on taking 1/60th of the full thing. If you take 1/60th of one, it's still thing. If you're taking what's left over, it's still it will never become a zero because it's always 1/60. That's the concept. But again, now that we just answered Ben Gilo, it makes sense because Ben Gilo means you have to be. Now depends what's the explanation of Ben Gilo, obviously, right? But it all makes sense. 1 minute. Yes, I'm a minute. So he says the Tanya was learned to the Braita. Rabbi Omer. Rabbi says, yeah, that anizonit. מנכסי אחים נוטלת איסור נכסים. He comes and he says, yeah, like this. He says, the daughter that she's taking, are you guys, yeah? The daughters that you prefer my makot and the makot and the bursa, correct? So you should be asking me for it. Right? The problem though is that if you're not here in Shiur, you're going to get 20 times makot. You understand? So what happens? Right? Says the Gemara. Rabbi Omer. Rabbi says, "Bat anizonim miniksei achim." The daughter that she gets from the properties of the brother. Notelet isur nechasim. She takes 10%. You remember we always spoke about that whenever a girl is going to come and get married, so she takes 10% of the properties of the father when the father passes away in order to let her get married. So it says Amrulo Rabbi, somebody has 10 daughters. So Kaddish. Why? It's 10% each.
What's left?
10%. So he says, right? Mishi Eshlo Eser Banot Ben and lo Ben Minkom Banot Klum. I think it's not. What are you talking about? Amarlan, he says, no. Dishona notelet isu nechasim. Shniya b'ma sheshira, shlishi b'ma sheshira, v'chozrot v'cholkot b'shaveh. And then at the end of the day, each one, they continue going downwards. And that's what we actually just mentioned. Here it says actually in the footnote, here it says in the footnote, right? It comes out, 1 second, it comes out, he says like this, it comes out that the one that's in the case of the 10 daughters, which are taking, right? So he comes and he says, so it comes out that there's 10, remember one more time, you have 10 daughters, and each one has to take 10%. 10%. We're not talking about 159th, which is less than 2%, right? Well, 1/60th. Sorry, 1/60th is less than 2%, right? That's, by the way, why they go against Moshe Feinstein. You know, there's a famous Mishnah that he argues on Moshe Feinstein. Moshe Feinstein wanted to say that we don't need Chalav Israel. He says, why? Because it's Chalav Stam. Why? Because, right, the government. So then afterwards, somebody came and said, yeah, but you know what? Even if it is that they're going to come and they're going to put something inside, it's Batel B'Shishim. Yeah, it's annulled in 60th. So even if they're going to come and they're going to put pig's milk, right? How much pig's milk are they already going to put? It's Batel B'Shishim. So they went and they answered, I don't understand you. According to government laws, until what percentage are you allowed to put? And you don't need to write it down.
80%.
2%. 2%. 2%. Meaning, if it's less than 2%, they don't have to write it down. So he comes and he says, 1 second, if it's 2%, so it's not Batel B'Shishim anymore. You need 120. There's not 120. Batel B'Shishim is 1/60th. But that's only if it's 1%. But if you have 2%, so you need 1/60th on each one. That's already 120. You don't have that. So therefore he comes and he says, so therefore they argue, they say that's what it is. So here they come and they make a calculation and they say that if the 10 daughters
all get married,
each one in one time, and there's 100% of the properties, and each daughter is taking 10%, according to the calculation, the daughters are taking around 65% of the properties, which means that the daughters are taking, right? And that's 10%. We're not about to 1/60th, which is less than 2%.
What is that? The first one takes 10, the second one takes 10% of 9. And
yes, exactly.
Together.
Yes, they continue.
Yeah.
But that's what he says.
That if after the fifth one, the father.
Rabbi Chelbo chalash. Rabbi Chelbo, he became sick. Nafak achri Zev Kahana. So then what happened was that he came out and he came and he mentioned something. Rabbi Chelbo be'ish, right? He went and he came and he said that Rabbi Chelbo is sick. So Rav Kahana came out and he started saying that, right, he's sick. Lo ika de ka'ate. He says nobody was coming to visit him. Yeah, you guys listening? Right, in 2 minutes you guys will go. Lo ika de ka'ate. He says nobody's coming to visit him. Amar lehu. He says lo kacha yamase talmid echad min talmidei Rabbi Akiva shechala velo nichnasu chachamim v'akro nichnas Rabbi Akiva levakro. Right. So what happened? What happened is that the same thing happened with one of the students of Rabbi Akiva. One of the students of Rabbi Akiva got sick. Nobody came to do Bikur Cholim. So what did Rabbi Akiva do? Rabbi Akiva came himself to do Bikur Cholim. Ubishvil shekibedo, he comes and he says, because he went and he started brooming the floor, right, and he was doing sponja lefanav, mopping the floor, v'chaya, he lived. Amar lo, so the Chole told Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi, hechiyitani, you've revived me. That means, imagine, Rabbi Akiva himself came in, and what was happening? He comes in, and he started brooming, mopping. Rabbi, you saved me. You revived me. Yatzar Rabbi Akiva v'darash. So Rabbi Akiva went out and he said, right? From here, Rabbi Akiva learned, if you don't go to do Bikur Cholim, it's like you're killing somebody. Why? Because the fact that the student came and he told Rabbi, you revived me, mashma that if he wouldn't have done that, look what would have happened. So he came and he said, that's how important it is, Bikur Cholim. Look at the importance of it. And then obviously there's going to be more stories, obviously, of what we